Welcome to
I was
the
supposed to have a
Vision
burp.
podcast.
I was supposed to have a burp saved up. I used it. It's
Good.
kind of fucked up starting the recording.
Yeah,
And I
maybe
burped.
maybe I did that on purpose because I knew that you were pent up. Wait, that
You
sounds
haven't
bad.
stopped anything. There'll be so many more.
Oh God. But yeah, today we are here to talk about Harry. Not Harry, but
We can talk about me.
how's your life,
Well,
man?
what?
How are things? Oh.
What?
Fine then. We'll talk about the themes of Deep Rock. God, you just
We'll
never
talk
never
about the
willing to
fact that
connect.
the devs are back to live streaming, which is a good sign. Now, there's no good reason to expect a teaser in the first stream after they're back from break, but I am.
Well, I think it
I'm
depends.
reading.
Because if they are adding multiple grenades per cast, which I think is kind of a given, or at least two.
Yeah, I did
And-
see someone expecting only one though for some reason. I guess that's just because of there's only one weapon per season.
Yeah.
But the only real excuse for that is we've talked about this. It doesn't really matter how much content they add in other departments. One grenade per class is going to be overwhelming, no matter what. Unless the only substitute for that is reworking grenades. That would involve things like adding mods or overclocks, which not everyone wants.
Yeah.
But I think that would still cover for that a little bit if they added, because that's adding to the old grenades as well. So that would, but if it's just 4 new grenades and that's it in that department, it's
I
just
think-
not going to be enough.
I
It's
think-
either going to be 2 each or a little bit of a rework.
I think there is unreasonable to think anything more and less than 2, because how it was before was there was 3 loadouts, 3 grenades. Now there's 5 loadouts, 5 grenades. It only makes sense. Plus, with the amount, 2 grenades is still not equal to a new gun in content, I would say, right? Because a new gun adds a lot of features in and of itself, but also a metric fuck ton of overclocks and upgrades and mods. Grenades do not have that. They are what they are, right? And so really, once they've made that, they don't have to make anything else for them. So I think really they could make 3 grenades worth in the time that it would take to probably make a gun. But I think it's reasonable for them to only make 2 each. But I think, one will be pretty pathetic.
Yeah.
And if they don't make up for it in other ways, either that or their other content, like their mission type or the meteorite being way grander than the other stuff.
They could. But it would have to be a lot, because I said it doesn't really matter how much they put into the other areas, it's still going to be underwhelming, because you sort of separate things.
Yeah.
So you sort of look at, in this department, all they added was 4 more grenades. The last time they added grenades, it was so much more than that. It's hard to separate it. Just because they added more in one other area doesn't... It would have to be so much for it to balance out.
I think if they only added one
way.
grenade, which honestly I don't think they will, and because we'll get to it, but I think if they only had one grenade, then it will be an example of the seasonal model being a bad idea. I think because if it was how Jesus Christ, if it was how it was originally, they would have just added more grenades, and that would have been the update, and that's how it would have been. But now they're kind of doing so many other things that the grenades would have been not that big of an issue for them.
I don't think that's going to be reflected, because holy shit.
I know.
I think it's sort of already been disproven with the weapons, because you can make the argument, when they last added new guns, they added 8. They did a whole new generation, but so much has changed since then, and it's almost at the point where it's an equal amount of work to add a set of 4 than it was to add a set of 8. And for so many reasons, a big reason that sort of goes unspoken for that is having to come up with new ideas, realistically, and make them feel different enough.
Yeah.
You can't just... They had to take time to actually figure out good ideas. And then, of course, overclocks weren't a thing when those guns were introduced. Weapon customization basically wasn't a thing, and there's so much more of it now as well. So much more. So, a lot has changed, and can take that as well as the large amount of content they added in other areas alongside it, including gameplay and cosmetics. Season 1 and 2 are really impressive in terms of content, to be honest. They're there's more content than most other updates when you really look at it, and we should be expecting the same level from season 3, which is why 2 grenades is almost necessary. But yeah, I don't like the idea of grenade overclocks, but I can potentially see like a set of 3 upgrades per grenade that would act like overclocks, but even then it's not really necessary, because with grenades it's almost like your grenade is a fixed tool and all the different grenades are like an overclock for it. Basically, in a way. So I'd rather see something like the first 3 upgrades of like on the pick, something like that for grenades. That could work, but even then, that's honestly the most I'd want them to do with that.
But it's because we mentioned this because I think if they were releasing maybe 2 per character or 3 per character, and they didn't want to release them all in like bunches where they display like all of the characters' grenades in one teaser, they would be starting around now, because there's only so long. That's quite a lot of things to tease. You know what I mean? And we'd get like a grenade a week, and that would take us up until like probably they start telling us everything else as well. So I think it's not. I think it's it's still not likely, but I think it's more likely than it's ever been, just because of the lightness of and the quantity of things they could like release. Like just a single grenade every week. That sate everyone. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, because it's actually a really good position. Assuming that they have at least 8, that's a good amount. That's like very tangible, exciting content that they can show us over a long
2
period
months.
of time.
That'll get us to what? Basically the date they expect to release it. So if anything, there's too many grenades, and that they.
Well, we don't actually have a release date because unfortunately, now Ghost Ship are very smart. They do often have to change sort of not target dates, more so target time periods, because that's more soon now. And they've sort of resorted to, and it started a while ago, but it's sort of resorted to it's target dates. It's like target quarters of the year. It's like they split the year into 4, and they're selecting one of those before they give a release date for something. They'll only give a release date once they're ready, which it does technically mean they would be keeping to their promise if season 3 were to come out in like the 31st of December. But it's not gonna be like that. Like, I mean, but realistically, it could still be something like early November, because their goal was like a 4 to 6 month gap between seasons, and I believe it was 5 months between season 1 and 2. So realistically, it shouldn't be November, because that would mean it was over a year since, or well, more than 6 months since season 2. But it'd still be only 6 months times 2 since season 1. So in that way, it's right. Then it's not. It's too far away from season 2. So in terms, well, we'll move on soon. But in regards to that, we are expecting. My expectation is, I wouldn't even say at earliest or at latest. I wouldn't even bring that into the conversation. I would just say mid-October. Yeah. Or like just before mid-October. Like, I'm guessing the 10th of October. That's my guess. There you go. Precision.
10th of the 10th. That'd be kind of weird with the way they do stuff, but
awesome.
I don't know. I
think they want to get it out before Halloween as well.
I think there probably will be a nugget of something in the stream. I think they'll kind of maybe not give us that per se, but they've been on break. They might slip.
Yeah. Well, that's a good idea, really, isn't it? Because it will help sort of spark interest. And realise that things are on track. Things are happening. Yeah,
because as far as everyone is concerned, they have like taken the month off and nothing's really happened. But I imagine I don't think it was like a full holiday, right? I think coding wise, I think they did stop. Like there wasn't as much like coding going on, but I think development wise, I think they were still kind of playing with the game in the like.
Of course they were. They probably all have their dev builds. They can probably
Well, no,
I don't know.
I mean,
probably only at the office. I don't know.
I,
But they can still
meant
think
more.
about things and write things
Yeah.
down. It's
Well,
all good, still going on. It's not
yeah.
going to leave their heads.
Yeah, they were still. I think it was more in that form. They were probably still coming up with the grenades, coming up with like the features of the game they want to add, but they weren't actually inherently coding it yet. That those people were on holiday, stuff like that. That's what I assume. We don't know. So I think they might be able to say the direction they want to take in the next season. Maybe they might kind of know, but it's not actually in any physical form yet, which might be the thing.
Well, we tend to get, when it comes to like official news posts, posts about updates, it's like divided into three. It's like the roadmap that can encompass multiple updates, and the roadmap will sort of tell us like a very loose outline. It's the earliest we get, and then you get something further down the line, pretty much all the teasers, but it's not on release. You sort of get it's like an informational post. It's like basically everything but patch notes. We sort of get those as well sometimes. And then there's like the patch notes thing, which just details everything, including all the stuff and balancing on release or on experimental branch release.
And there's like celebrations.
Now, we do need to move on, but I sort of talked about. I don't know if we talked about it in a video or sort of in that way, but it's always been more excited for the hype or use of that. And I agree in part, but I feel that way surrounding the experimental branch, which is like the coolest time period for me. Even though I just that time period is so cool because the update is out and people are playing with it, but it's not in its full form yet. So it's almost like it's still just like building, but the update is out. It's a really weird place to be, but I find it really cool. And I like keeping track of everything that happens. And of course, experimental patch notes video that did us quite well. So expect to see one of those. That's the thing that we do pretty much just before the update release. Like we sort of what's happened in the experimental branch. And obviously neither of us can really play it, so it just requires me to be very on it and keep track. Anyway,
which you are anyway.
That's all the news that we made up. Not made up, but sort of extrapolated.
Just from their back.
Of this podcast. They're back. Guess who's back, baby? It's Oh Shit Games, and I reckon they have a very healthy working environment. Doesn't exploit, the guys lower down. Unlike Galactic, the company itself.
Smooth.
I reckon Ghost Ship did things this way, sort of like they could never be as bad as Deep Rock Galactic. it's like sort of get people off their backs.
Yeah. Well, generally, I don't think like crunching and all that happens. Well, it happens in like indie stuff, but I don't think it's as stigmatized. Because like in bigger companies,
well, no, because in indie stuff, it's not forced still. It's them just. It's more so just.
It's passion.
I would guess passion, but in the AAA stuff, it's not passion.
It is
forced.
Yeah. Well, it's not technically forced. You don't have to stay overtime. You don't have to work like all 7 days a week, like 16 hours per. But if you don't, then maybe you're gonna be sacked come the end of the year, or you're gonna be looked upon less for the promotion, stuff like that.
Taken down to the dungeon and guillotined.
You'll be taken on a holiday by a bunch of men and then kill yourself, stuff like that. Basically, that's what happened in Blizzard, or Activision. I think it was Blizzard. Point is, some gaming companies are evil, and I think
like they're workers.
Yeah, which is a theme in Deep Rock Galactic.
Yeah, well, Deep Rock doesn't really have a story.
No, which you've gone over multiple times.
It doesn't have a campaign. I'd argue that it does have a story, or a story to be told.
Thing is, though, I don't think by any means that the way that they are telling this story, or the way that they care, they're not trying to push a message, right? They don't actually, like, obviously they're like, this is bad, but they're not really pushing any further than that, like asking for any change of people. They're just using the theme of corporate greed, which is prevalent in the world, and kind of pushing that into dwarf space, and seeing using that as like a setting basically, where a big company is exploiting cheap labor in high risk work, like stuff like that.
It's very specifically a theme, not a message.
Yeah,
that's the thing, and it's like corporate greed, capitalism, and exploitation, and it's all like it. I don't think it's really pretentious because I think it's quite on the nose, to be honest. It's not that subtle. It's only subtle in the way that the dwarves themselves kind of brush it off, but it's really obvious what's going on. You don't need to look very far. I mean, I guess smart stout is kind of one of the biggest sort of labels of that, where the dwarves themselves will literally say they think they're being exploited. But
well, yeah, because I think that's only interesting because the fact that it takes a smart stout for them to realise that means that they legitimately don't most of the time.
Well, that's the weird thing as well, because, see, this sort of gets into something that could become potentially very pretentious, which is about the dwarves essentially representing people and like office workers who are just drones, who are sort of somehow satisfied with what they're doing. But that's a very loose thing, because I think it's almost meant to be more funny than anything, that the dwarves literally just, they love mining and killing so much that it actually doesn't matter that they're being exploited, which probably doesn't really reflect the real world, where these kind of people who are just drones to, like, slaves to the system, office workers aren't really enjoying themselves. The dwarves are. They enjoy what they're doing. That's the thing.
Well, the thing is, though, but that's only because they were raised that way. Like, obviously, this is incredibly light-hearted. It's incredibly light-hearted approach to it. In that, dwarves do stereotypically just love killing or not really inherently killing, but like explosions.
It's not killing. They like fighting, though.
Yeah, fighting and like fighting hordes and mining. Right, like these are things that they've as a species they are designed to do, and DRG exploits that. Well, yeah, I mean, I think they are probably, like, genealogy, the word, basically, like, they are probably made, like, they formed into mining machines, right? The fact that they are as compact as they are means that they are extremely strong while also being very small, allowing them to get into, like, these smaller places or stuff like that. Like, there is an argument that dwarves are legitimately built for mining and fighting, which and just because that's the case doesn't mean that DRG gets to exploit them all this much, though. Like
yeah. Well, yeah, because that's the point, though. It's even though they're enjoying it, they're being exploited because, well, the exploitation comes from the fact that DRG are getting to do this work almost definitely for not enough pay or not enough safety assurance, frankly.
Well, the thing is, though, Harry, is if you think about it, they're not paying them at all.
No,
they're not.
This is
all of the money they earn from their mining job gets sent straight back into the company via, like, I mean, beers not so much, they don't actually pay for them, but like cosmetics, overclocks, promotions, like
equipment that they could just be provided with, basically, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, everything they earn, they have to put straight back into the company, and so it really, like, if they were to leave and like retire, I'm not even, because like scripts are supposed to be right. They are company. That's like the name of that kind of currency, right? The currency.
I think the credits are universal credits. I think that's probably the idea. I don't think the credits are just a DRG thing. I think that's probably if we were to consider a large universe for Deep Rock, I think those credits can be used like anywhere. But then the scripts are a currency designed by the company as fake currency, like dark currency, to be used by the workers to buy things from them. And it's when you can. It's obviously it was done for, I guess, development reasons. I guess they chose to do it, but then they sort of factored in a way of making it make sense. But I don't know if it really makes sense to me from DLG's perspective. It's really just a case of they happen to do seasonal models at this time. Scripts were like something that Deep Rock, the company, would have wanted to introduce a while ago. But it's only because Ghost Ship started. They started with seasonal model fairly recently. But yeah, the scripts, like I think have DRG on them, like the letters.
Yeah, I
It's
think
also
so, yeah.
it says like season 1 and season 2 they get phased out in between seasons, which means that in like universe seasons are an actual thing, and like the scripts become like
Scripts
redundant after
are
a season,
are
so they have to
literally
sort them out.
they're like just like if you go into a casino and you trade in $5 for 5 cheese dollars, stuff like that. Like it is you then trading things for a thing that you can then only spend in that place. Except with scripts, you're not actually trading in anything. You're just using your time and effort to earn them, I guess. And, like taking down the rivals, which is going to be interesting in kind of an indirect way. It's like what the new season, what the DRG will want to pay you scripts for, because that's kind of what like the achievement stuff is, right? Like you're getting data cells and doing the daily missions for scripts. It's them rewarding you for behavior, but only with stuff that you have to spend then in its like own echo chamber. Like, but I think that's a bit off topic. But yeah, it should be interesting. But yeah, I think
Season 3 will be green. I don't know if you agree, but I think it's going to be green. I don't know why.
Could be.
It's going to be green because, like, his mum's red.
I mean,
blue.
The labyrinthian task. Actually, that's not coming out until tomorrow. That's a spoiler.
Tomorrow.
Or tomorrow, day after tomorrow. My game mode that I made, which a video is coming out on, is green. So they're going to be adding that this next season. So green makes sense.
Yeah. Look forward to that. In the patch notes, I farted as I said that.
You didn't have to say that. No one could hear it. Yeah.
What?
But yeah, it's still like all of these are like very real and like deep themes. But
deep themes.
Ghost Ship is not trying to like push the agenda really. Like,
they're not pushing an agenda. It's sort of an agenda that everyone kind of understands already.
Yeah, everyone knows this happens, and Deep Rock's just taking a lighter tone to it.
I think it is almost more for humour than anything. I mean, there's sort of some more sinister implications, but it's still not trying to send a message. I think it's just interesting. It's sort of hard to sort of place why they would do this, but I think it comes out of it's sort of just interesting for the players to sort of just pick up on these things and sort of come to an understanding about what's going on. Rock. It's not really to send a message, it's really just to stimulate your brain. That's sort of every piece of lore and implication of wider things going on. That's all it is in Deep Rock. It's just to make you think and sort of wonder what's going on. And shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Well, I don't want to necessarily move on to another part. There's sort of like a twofold topic here, which is like the combination of dwarven culture and DRG's like greed sort of coalescing in. So we have like the idea of myths and legends, but also propaganda and how they might be one and the same, which is like Carl basically. There's sort of theories that a lot of you, I assume most of you will not know who Carl is, but understand what Carl is. Carl is like this legendary dwarven figure who like died or was lost very early on with the dwarves coming on board Deep Rock, and they sort of use him as like a figurehead, as like this
icon to strive to.
Figure. Yeah, and there's a lot of theories that I kind of agree with, that he might have been made up by the company as propaganda.
Hell, I'd take this a step further. I'd say he was real, he was legendary, and they killed him to make him a martyr. I mean,
it's possible.
I think it's more than possible.
I don't think they did it. I think it's not so likely that they did it on purpose. I think they took advantage of it, though. Definitely. I think they made him on purpose. That's what I sort of think is almost 100% likely. I think it probably was like genuine to start with, but they turned him into propaganda deliberately. Yeah. I don't think every dwarf knew Carl. I don't think the legend would spread it easily. It's just one dwarf getting lost. Although apparently the point is that the tale is quite legendary, which I think was probably spread by DRG themselves, like marketing bullshit. They spun the story to be much grander than it was.
Well, bear in mind how long it takes for a tale to become like legend and myth. Do you think DRG has been using dwarves and Hoxies for that long?
No, I think that's the thing. I think it's fabricated. I think Carl did die or get lost, but they just spun it into something much more than it is. It's like a motivational
I think it also.
idea.
I think it also bears note that Carl has a name.
Yeah.
And I think that sounds really dumb, and that's because it is. But bear in mind, that might have been in a time before they dehumanized the dwarves, and they just gave them names for their roles. This is probably maybe back in like the first squad or something like that, or maybe just the first dwarf is named Carl, and then he died, and then from then on they kind of just, you are driller, you drill things, you do nothing else, and then that's kind of just set them on the path.
Well, there's this really weird sort of combination of scrapped ideas and people like to give like lore explanations to gameplay stuff sometimes, and it's usually not correct, but it's still a fun thing to do. And the one that I like sort of thinking about in that sense is like potentially being clones, at least of themselves.
Yeah.
If not, I saw the theory. I did not come up with this. I saw the theory of all the dwarves being clones of Carl, to explain why all of them look the same. And then there was, when they still use it, the sort of like the testing class is called the generic hero dwarf, who can use any items, which that sort of like leans into a very weird abstract explanation where Carl was the generic hero dwarf, and they sort of just he died and they just sort of split. I don't know. It's all a bunch of bollocks, but
Yeah, I think it's very likely, and I don't think they'll ever tackle it head on. But I wouldn't put it past them to eventually, like, mention it. You know what I mean? I think like there are some mysteries that are just mysteries, but there's some that feel like you could get an answer to. Like one day, error cubes are gonna have an explanation.
oh, they're going to come into play at some point,
Yeah.
certainly. Because well, I wouldn't say they've been adding things. Oh no, they have. Sorry, they have been adding things very slowly. It started with the it started with the error helixes. That was the second edition. But there were sort of other things that surrounded the error cubes at first, like the achievement for error cubes for 5 describes them as like ancient alien artifacts or something, and well, there's that, and then they added the error helixes to the radioactive exclusion zone, which clearly have similar implications. And then I think Smart Scout came before the Azure Will. So you have Smart Scout where the dwarves say, the error cubes before, sort of just building towards a potential
You need 5 of
explanation
them.
or purpose for
thing
them.
is though, and I know that they probably didn't think this far, but for the dwarves to know how to use error cubes, you can't then have to put it in a machine that doesn't exist in the game yet. Whatever they could be used for in the future is already in the game. And you just then have to add 5 error cubes to it. So it might be maybe the forge, add 5 error cubes to the forge, and you'll get like an error overclock or something like that, or a mission to randomize it or like boost its stats, something like that. Like, yeah, there's a lot of potential for them, and it's the same with Carl. There's a lot of potential for some actual legitimately interesting storytelling.
Well, yeah, I think those are the 2 oldest mysteries. And I guess
Yeah.
mystery is absolutely a theme of the game, mainly with those 2 elements, but they're quite prominent.
Yeah.
Carl is mentioned constantly. Error cubes, once you've seen one, you don't really forget that they're a thing. And there are other reminders, like the Smart Scout line. And I think there's the people call it the error henge from the Azure World.
Yeah.
And whether those things are directly related is sort of in the air, but it's quite an interesting
It's just like the
artifact. It does strike me as like something that could have been created at one point.
I do like it, because generally as a whole I'm not the biggest fan of the sci-fi genre, but I have played quite a bit of No Man's Sky, and sci-fi anomalies are like some of the coolest shit. like just being in like the empty void of space with an unknowing amount of everything and stumbling across the unexplainable is always cool as hell, and error cubes are that. if a bit tame, in that they're basically just a Rubik's cube, but and not like an abyssal horror like you can get in No Man's Sky, but stuff like that they could. Literally, you can bump into like things in space where it's just this giant like caterpillar creature with an eye, and if you get too near, it like laser beams at you, and it's pretty cool. But
that's fucking cool.
And there's smaller ones in the ocean, which are terrifying because you're like swimming down.
I like that kind of thing.
Yeah, like No Man's Sky does have cool moments, but I think we'll get to that maybe one day if we were talking about the sci-fi stuff in genre and how well Deep Rock is like in comparison to other sci-fi games, which we could do later, I guess, because I think it's on the list. But for now,
just genre.
Yeah. For now, I think.
Well, it sort of brought up Carl as like this sort of middle ground between dwarven culture and the DRG's ways.
Yeah.
But like I mentioned, dwarven culture, and I think Carl was sort of used to sort of enforce this. But there's a very strong theme of teamwork and camaraderie. If it doesn't come through in the gameplay all the time, it just comes through in lines and it's encouraged through a lot of different means.
The thing is though,
it does feel like the dwarves communicate a lot of the time, even though not really having conversations. But
yeah, but like I think the thing is though is like businesses telling people to work together, that sounds counterproductive, right? Like generally you want to keep people docile and singular and like that, but very often are they pushing people to work as a team because people feel a lot of guilt if they don't work as hard as they possibly can in a team. Like it's like if you're a part of a team and you're not carrying your weight, you feel worse. So making people really fond of making people really like you need to work as a team, you need to stick together, you need to care about each other. That forces people to work harder than they would have normally because they want to help the people around them. Because even if you're a docile or you're a dwarf, you still care about each other, right? I mean, it's
they do, and that's what I mean about camaraderie. The dwarves, they get along. I think they're all just naturally friends, and they all care about each other. There's
it's sentiments though, right?
Echoed. I think there are sentiments that are echoed by the dwarves that do not come from the DRG company. Things like no dwarf left behind. I think that's just a thing that's just their way. They don't leave each other behind.
It's literally it's written on the drop pod.
Yeah, it's become. I think there's posters that say it as well. But
yeah, I think DRG. I think there are a mixture, right? I think some sayings dwarves made and then DRG picked up because it was useful to them.
They're taking advantage of dwarven culture, basically.
Yeah,
stuff that already could exist, but they're sort of enforcing it. Propaganda.
There is a pretty blurred line as to what the dwarves came up with and what DRG came up with, but I think it comes to the point where they're all the same.
Rock and stone.
They all go towards the same objective, which is to get them to work together and mine the best they can. Their culture and DRG's propaganda both push that agenda onto the dwarves to the point where they'll just do it. That's their life. That's the way that things are. They'll sacrifice their life just to make enough money to buy a hat. that's just what they are.
Yeah.
And obviously it's taken lightly, right? It's not this is not like a critique on the game, like these are such dark heavy themes, you can't like joke around with them, or just it's just the fact is that they are being exploited and everyone knows it, but it's kind of just the gameplay which is something. I don't know. I don't think it's bad, but I think it is interesting. And I think if they were to dabble with it a little bit more, it could pay off. Maybe like a season where the dwarves, a group of dwarves revolt, something like that. And
like Neo Heroes arc.
Yeah.
What? Huh? Well, that's kind of what the Scale Brigade is almost. I mean.
Well, Scale Brigades are like the opposite. If you think about it, the Scale Brigades aren't affected by DRG's propaganda. They are purely run by the ancient dwarven spirit.
I think that's sort of what they are as well. I think the Scale Brigade is like this last remnant of the most advanced sort of facet of dwarven culture that hasn't been absorbed by some corporation.
Yeah, but they're selling themselves out to be mercenaries for the dwarven.
They're sort of the most recent addition, though, to sort of the mythology almost. They're sort of this legendary group to the dwarves at least.
So, well, is it actually... So, if you equip Scale Brigade, are you actually now a member of them? Like, you're playing as
I
one?
think so.
Or are you just, like, tipping your hat to? Or is it like in honor of the Scale Brigade?
I think it could be either.
Yeah.
I don't know. I reckon it's probably the second one, actually.
But yeah, I think that those kind of things are cool though. Like, I really do. Scale Brigade was like one of the best things they ever added, and then they've never done it again since, and it's kind of sad.
They've never done the same thing again.
Yeah, like very very cool cosmetic. They added to the player level like objective stuff and lore implications, which they haven't added really new ones for a while, other than I guess the rivals, right?
Yeah, they're sort of moving things away from adding foundational stuff. Like, world building is very light in Deep Rock, but that's kind of what they were doing. They're sort of just very subtly laying groundwork, like very old myths. There were sort of mentions of like the ancestors and old dwarven culture. There's sort of new elements like the Scare Brigade. There's sort of myths like Carl, mysteries like the Aerocubes. But they moved on from that. They haven't completely left behind adding in mystery and stuff. They're just moving forward a bit more.
Yeah, the thing is the way that the game was being made and still kind of is, adding hard lore is a bad idea. Like, if they were to set in stone like some like things early on in the game, and sort of set in rock, like if they were to, if they were to be like the dwarves, they won't wear, or like they don't do, or they can't, or like something like that. Like, if they add perimeters, that blocks off potential future ideas, and they clearly didn't want that, which is why it's so open-ended. They could just add stuff and then add a light bit of lore, and it won't really interrupt anything. But now the game's in more of a completed state, and I think these seasons are going to be more self-contained, so they can kind of go pretty hard in the lore. Like, we know a fair bit about the rivals. Obviously not, like, anything important, like where they came from.
I think know very little. Because I almost divide the mystery, like, sort of two separate mysteries, in my opinion, from Season 1 and 2. Season 1, the mystery is what are the rivals. Season 2 is almost more specifically what is the nemesis, in my opinion. But what Season 1 represents to me, it sort of ties back into not necessarily corporate greed, but the audacity of the corporation, which you can watch on our channel. But no, seriously, that is very specifically something, that is a very specific term that applies here, in that there's sort of reinforced through voice lines. Mission Control tells you things in the company briefing. There's sort of this reinforcement of Hoxie's being Deep Rock's territory, but also kind of the dwarves' territory. As in, it's not like they've said that directly, but the dwarves themselves have. The dwarves sort of call it their turf. They sort of believe that Hoxie's belongs to them. DRG truly believes that, because they're greedy, bastards.
Well, the thing is, right, is obviously
to treat it like their territory.
Yeah, like the Hoxies is like the most profitable planet in the verse. You know that they're aware. The verse, like it is as far as business wise goes. They need to be like, this is ours. We need this. This is like the best place for us to mine, basically. And they kind of reinforce that in the dwarves, because I would imagine dwarves probably do claim where they mine to be where they live. You know what I mean? Like, generally,
definitely an element of the dwarves considering Hoxie's their home.
Yeah, which, you know, pretty hostile home. But then again, it's the dwarves. I imagine, like, we don't know how they originally used to live. But if we could just take this as like the future, like they've unlocked space travel of like Tolkien's world or stuff like that. Dwarves don't live peacefully anyway, right? They're used to their fair share of danger, and so they're probably not that. They're like, okay, yeah, there's like hordes upon hordes of aliens that want to kill us, but it's where we mine, so it's home, like stuff like that.
Well, yeah, there's that line. I don't think there's actually many lines like this, but there is that one line where it says, "When the bugs start to feel like family, you know it's time to quit." So that sort of like that's very important, though. I think the dwarves, they have a familiar. They don't think of Hoxies as
an alien planet.
Not really. No, I think. Well, that's sort of the point, though. It's almost like meant to reflect sort of the player experience, especially the long-term player's experience, where we're so familiar with Hoxies in every way. Like, you start to recognise cave shapes and things like that, which is just born out of the nature of the game rather than a deliberate lore implication. But there's still definitely an element of becoming very familiar with this planet and not seeing it as like this very mysterious alien world, even though it still is. It's just because you get used to seeing everything about it so much.
Yeah, which is why I think it's something that so far all of the threats from these seasons, obviously same one for the first two, but it's new
All
one.
of them.
Yeah,
All the different threats from the seasonal model.
both of them of the robots and now the meteorite are external. Because I imagine it won't always be that way, but currently the safest kind of bet of we don't know what's going to happen is that it's not Hoxies, because they understand Hoxies. DRG knows Hoxies, like it knows what it's capable of, and the dwarves feel comfortable there at this point. Like, they keep throwing new things at us, like the Omra and stuff, but generally they adapt, stuff like that. Like, it is. It's just a home for them, and their home is being, quotations, like, attacked by the rivals and stuff like that. Like, obviously, I mean, DRG made it more, DRG the company made it more like personal, or not personal, but like rivals.
They tried to make it personal.
Yeah,
that's like the propaganda thing. They wanted to make it personal for the dwarves. They immediately painted the rivals as an enemy, and
a threat to your way of life.
Well, they kind of are, to be honest, a threat to the dwarves' way of life, because the dwarves, they're stuck in this loop of just doing what they do, but the rivals suck up everything. There's not going to be anything left for them to do. And but I think there's a definitive implication that the rivals are actually meant to be like a better company, or like morally so. For a lot of reasons. I guess the first reason, if we were to assume they have an intelligent management, like it's people behind it, the fact that they're not sending people is already gives them an edge over DRG, who just throw dwarfs down there without care in the world. So the corporation already in that way, and they don't really exploit the environment in the same way that DRG does. DRG own these industrial monsters. The rivals, it's literally just data gathering. We don't really know what the purpose could be more destructive, even. We don't really know what their plans are, but they are just gathering data. They're not mining, not destroying large amounts of terrain.
But I think
they're not destroying. The bugs don't mind them being there. That's the important thing. That's the most important thing, I think. And the bugs hate us.
Yeah.
Because we're flesh, I think, actually. That's probably it.
I think it's, because I'm not sure if you know how it works, but like, if you're a scout, and I don't mean the one from the game, although it does kind of count. You go in, see, assess the situation, come back. That is what Season 1 was. That was the rivals appearing, like searching, finding out the data with the prospectors, and storing the data, and then protecting it by the caretaker, which I don't see. Thing is though, is obviously this shouldn't be a thing, right? Like, they realistically didn't need weapons, right? Because the Glyphids don't seem to want to attack them at all. They don't need weapons. They wouldn't have thought to need weapons, but everything does. Everything that has a defense system in place. But that's obviously because it's a game and there are enemies, right? But realistically, they probably wouldn't have been geared for war.
Well, they weren't though. That's kind of the point. Obviously,
the caretaker wasn't.
It's natural. It's just stuff that's sort of built into it. It's defenses that can come up if need be. It's actually nothing offensive about the rivals' activities in Season 1 specifically. Obviously, they're armed. They have weapons on their assets, but that's just how they were. I think they're not that they were necessarily a military force or anything, but that's just how they were designed. Wherever they came from, they were just designed that way, and they just sort of They weren't going to take off the weapons when they sent them down there.
Yeah,
Down there. But
I mean,
the
I
caretaker's
suppose.
defenses only come up once the shields come down. But then with rifle escalation, it's all offensive, kind of. It's sort of what it's meant to be. Coming directly after us because, yeah, well,
Yeah.
we're bitches.
Well, because I mean, it does. I don't know. The implications are kind of weird because yeah, obviously season 1 they were scouting, gathering information. Then they wanted us to send back, to wherever they're from, giant hub of AI or just elves. Point is, this was a research squad, but then it is kind of weird that they then sent down the Nemesis, because generally, if the scouting squad fails, you kind of stop, which I guess is what probably is going to happen for next season, right? The Nemesis is their kind of last ditch effort of kind of being able to see what Hoxis contains, and they made the Nemesis to like kill what was killing them, which notes something, right? Because according to logic, they haven't actually received any data from Hoxie's back. Otherwise, the planet would be swarming with other companies. So if no data has returned back to the company, how do they know about the dwarves? And how do they know what's killing them?
Nemesis is Carl. I don't think I want to do this again, that specifically, because we have talked about it. But when it comes to the theme of mystery, that's the most recent addition, is the Nemesis. The fact that it uses dwarf voices.
Yeah, well, like
replicable voices is
the dwarf voices was like normal, right? Like the fact that he mimics down things, it's like, okay, this makes sense. Sure, he's just somehow recorded their voices while down, and they're using it to lure them in. But when he dies, that's when things get interesting. When he uses a dwarven voice to say phrases that no dwarf has said, then where did he get those from?
Yeah.
And the things that he says in that voice is interesting. And I think, the Nemesis is
the only way to win is to not play.
Yeah, the Nemesis is a little mystery box, and I mean, I was going to say mystery box of something, but I realised mystery box sums it up. But yeah, it is a very cool piece of lore implication, designed very well and very poorly received.
I'm gonna need to fight you on that because it's well designed, sure, but also deliberately designed because they changed it. It used to be when you killed the Nemesis, it would change its voice to whatever its true voice is for the death lines.
Right.
They changed it during experimental build. They revoiced it so that the death lines were in the dwarf voice. To me, that's the implication that its true voice is also the dwarf voice. That's the implication there. They changed it because they realised what they wanted to do with the Nemesis was imply that
there was
something sinister is going on. Yeah, and that's why people come up with things like, oh, it's Carl the Nemesis, or like, well, the Nemesis obviously isn't one person. There's hundreds of nemesis, or thousands even.
Or hundreds of millions. Probably not hundreds of millions. I assume Harry's gone, so I'm going to stall.
Stall? I'll be a shit. No, I don't. What are you saying?
Well, I was thinking like maybe, probably hundreds of millions, but like that probably is too many. But like probably more in the millions, I would imagine.
Well, make infinite. I think that's the implication. I think it's also an AI, an artificial intelligence is shared, not amongst all the robots necessarily, but potentially, because
I think it bears note that the Nemesis's eye does look quite similar to a camera. I think I don't know if that means anything, but it does, doesn't it? Well, the Nemesis itself does vaguely look like a camera.
I guess. Well, I almost like the implication that because Well, across season 1 and 2, when we're talking about the theme of mystery, which has sort of just come to the forefront as the biggest theme, but it is one of the biggest themes. And across season 1 and 2, the one that sort of ties them together is just the mystery about the true nature of the rivals, and it's something people still speculate about. Are they elves? Are they orcs? Are they just robots? Which is what I think. Is they're just robots that are controlled by
I do think
an AI.
Well, because I think it bears note that they are. I don't think DRG is technologically behind, right? I don't think that's ever implied. I think obviously they skint out quite a bit, like generally, and like the technology. But I think like generally they are on the apex of weaponry. Like like the Drac was
I'm
very
not sure
new.
that they are actually. I think they probably just didn't.
Well,
Probably
they-
just
they-
no. I don't think they're at the top. I don't. I think they actually have a lot of terrible equipment. I reckon it's probably all quite primitive.
Well, they literally the Drac came like the Drac was like made very recently, and they immediately pumped it out to like all the dwarves and all that. They made it immediately, mass produced it, right? So, and was it their scientists or just scientists, or like what was it? Because if it was theirs, then maybe they're behind.
What?
But I think the implication is. And because I remember there was a pretty cool post, like some guy did armor designs for all the dwarfs that made them look like really sci-fi, like just killed, or it was more like they just killed Moonlord, and they would have like the
I
lunar
want
shit
rival
on.
tech armor so bad.
So do I. It's not even funny, but like they didn't, and which is I think probably related to this. They don't like, or they don't want that super sci-fi look to the dwarves. The dwarf and DRG is a rusty, nutty, bolty kind of gritty space station and company, which
Unbelievable.
even means they just like I don't know they're recently made or they recently entered space, but I doubt that they are that poorly done. I think they are they are mining the shit out of one of the best planets ever. They would be one of the best mining companies and therefore would have a lot of money to invest in technology, right? They are probably obviously not at the top, but I think that's the point, right? I think DRG is probably average, if not maybe higher in technology, but I think the point is that the rifle techs are clearly way superior.
Well, yeah,
Like-
because they have teleport technology, first of all, because
Yeah.
I think that's how they get everything down there, by the way. I think it's...
Well, that's what
because
they do, right? That's when you see like the enemies spawn in, they just literally teleport out of nowhere. You can see it.
But I think what it is because I no, because if you look at salvage jobs, there are holes, obviously, from where the old drop pod came in. So the Ghost Ship, I can say, aren't against showing where something came from necessarily. The machine events are a bit weird. Like it doesn't show how they got down there, but still, there's no clear indication of how. Like you look at an industrial sabotage mission, how any of that shit got down there. I think it's because it starts with like one very small probe, one very small like drilling probe that can literally summon everything else. I think they teleported the entire caretaker and like all of that stuff. I think they teleported it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that teleportation is completely on the table, right? That has been proven. They use it, right? But with the way that I can't think of an example of this, but sometimes you'll see like super intelligent AI and like sci-fi or like just stuff generally. They can basically conjure stuff out of nothingness and like rebuild or just build itself. Like they use like the environment around them and like turn it into metal and then craft a body or stuff like that. I don't know, but maybe that they sent in like a probe that then basically built the caretaker from the surrounding area and turned it into that, or teleportation. But either or, basically, they are way more advanced than DRG. That is not in question, right? Like I know DRG just have like flying robots, right? They have Bosco. But Bosco, I think, really isn't...
Bosco's not that advanced.
Yeah, I think he's got, like, the flying
he can fly,
engine.
but he digs with his arms and has, like, a little gun attached to him, like a manual gun.
He is
an
just
analog weapon.
He is just a turret that can fly and mine, and even then, he can't always do all of them, right? He is pretty low ability thing. although we love Bosco, but still. Meanwhile, you have shredders that are not a lot to them, obviously, but they are like pinpoint flying machines, right? They manage to super streamline the ability to fly and like do everything you can, right? They're basically tiny planes. And then patrol bots, which, you know, they're an ungodly abomination of weaponry and mobility and stuff like that. They're just more advanced than DRG is. And I think generally, people assume DRG is a human ran thing, right? Like, yeah. And so I think this is, you know, DRG is a culmination of human technology. And there is an argument, I think, which is why this argument still exists, that elves have always kind of been better than humans, right? In like fantasy. They're like, they live in fancier houses, they use magic so their lives are better. Like, that's always just a thing. But then in sci-fi, normally the most sophisticated and highly technological things are run by AI. Because AI is better, it's smarter, it's quicker, it will evolve quicker. So it really is only ever going to be one of those two, right? Like, I'm sorry, but orcs are not on the table. Orcs are not coming up.
But I also don't think the elves are... Well, sorry, I shouldn't say that. The elves are definitely on the table, but I don't think the elves are actually going to be that important
the thing is that, yeah, I mean, we mentioned this before, and it makes sense in this episode, but the game uses a low-level fantasy world to write a sci-fi game, right? It is so sci-fi focused that you forget that you're playing as a dwarf most of it. Well, you don't, but like the dwarves are fantasy and not just a thing in sci-fi, right? Like it is far more likely that the rivals are just a super smart AI than elves, because the game very just doesn't rely on fantasy elements to tell its story, like, at all, ever. Except for the dwarves, they're literally it.
Well, I've said it before. I think the elves are known, like what they're doing, sort of their general nature is known. I don't think they're an enemy, right? Because like
they may be a rival company, but I don't think they're the rivals.
Also, not really. I don't think they are. I don't think they care about that kind of thing. I think that's sort of the implication that the elves probably just don't do anything.
No,
and
I think
the League's Rather Special is probably sourced from like elven breweries.
Yeah, I think it's very likely that elves are planet savers, right? They are anti-mining company. They go around conquering planets for environmental protection, I would imagine. Well, that's going to be their whole thing.
That's the most potent argument for why elves could be behind right. But the problem is, I think Nemesis is what throws that off, in my opinion. Because there's this really crazy idea that I don't think is completely off the table, but it is kind of crazy. Yeah, and I'm just going to say it. It's the idea that actually, it's not that Carl is behind it or anything. It's actually that they have Carl held hostage, and they use him. They turned his brain into an AI just for the Nemesis. Like, they designed the Nemesis specifically using Carl or something. It's like that makes more sense to me, because otherwise all of the rifles would be speaking.
How does that make sense though? Assuming
just a dwarf that they kidnapped in season 1.
Oh, in season 1, maybe. Yeah, I think that could make sense, because Carl, assuming that he's a thing, he was probably around. You know, he was around way before the rivals were a thing, and the rivals have just found the planet. So how would they have kidnapped him? You know, if he was in Hoxie's, assumingly when he went disappeared, like it just doesn't quite make sense. But maybe, you know, if they are the elves, maybe that the dwarves are ancient dwarves, or they're the dwarves that refuse to join the company. Maybe not inherently Scale Brigade, but just, you know, dwarves that don't like DRG as a company. So they've, you know, the elves losing season 1, they went to them and like, hey, we need some help. How do we go about killing dwarves? And they were like, oh, okay, if you just impersonate a dwarf being injured, they will definitely come to save you. That's what dwarves do. And then using that information, they built the Nemesis to lure them in, and stuff like that. Like, I think Carl is a push, right? And also, I think that would be a poor resolution to the mystery. I think you've got to agree with that.
I think most solutions would be, because it's definitely a testament to how well constructed of a myth Carl is, and that people can come up with so many different things. People have like suggested that Carl is like the Hearthstone or something. It's just it's so much bullshit, but the fact that people can say those things, it's just a testament to how unknowable Carl's sort of nature and fate really is. So no one knows what actually happened or what became of Carl at all.
Which is why I think the most reasonable conclusion, and not the most reasonable, like the best conclusion, is that he never existed. Because I think that would really be the only actual punchline. Because if he did exist and he was a legend and they turned him into a myth for the sake of propaganda, that's like not bad of a story. But if the fact, it kind of then ruins the Carl's the Hearthstone or Carl's the Nemesis theories, because he was a person that had not existed. But if he never existed, then DRG is basically playing along with those theories. They're like, yeah, sure, Carl's the Hearthstone. Carl is definitely real.
So is Ghost Ship, though, because Carl has become just as meaningful, basically, to players as he is to the dwarves.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason for Carl is one of the salutes. It's to hammer home this idea that you're doing... That's one of the most genius bits of propaganda that DRG uses, is the idea that the dwarves are doing this in the name of someone.
Yeah, it's like they know that there's so many things that they lock the dwarves in, right? Like, obviously, inherently, the dwarves just enjoy doing the job. That's just a thing, right? Like, that they just have fun killing shit, or like fighting and mining, right? And then they just keep them like drunk as hell, or they give them all the drinks they could possibly want, unlimited supply of alcohol. They're having a gay old time. But then even if they started to kind of lose faith, lose hope, or start like
the Abyss Bar is pretty malicious, though.
Yeah,
I think it's designed to make them just forget everything, because there are
and add more money into the company.
Yeah, there are very subtle layerings, though, of like doubt in the dwarves. Sometimes it does happen. They clearly enjoy the job, but it's like sometimes you get lines like, "I'm beginning to wonder if fighting bugs and moving dirt is the best way to make a living," and then like that, and the one about, sometimes wonder if mining is all there is to life, and then you punch yourself in the nose. Like, they have doubts, but then it's just like, it just comes back to the job, and they just carry on.
Yeah.
It's just their life.
It's their life, it's they're a part of a team, they have to work together to get the job done. If they abandon the team, then they might all die. Stuff like that.
And they got to do it for Carl.
Yeah, and then there's the mythical Carl that they kind of will live up to, or just honour the
him
name.
Proud.
Yeah. And there's just so
Carl,
many...
the proof of this.
Yeah, there's just so many layers of like entrapment that the dwarves are stuck in, which is why it's never really gonna break, right? Like, inherently, this game is endless, right? The dwarves aren't gonna leave. You're not gonna be playing a mission one day and your dwarf just stops moving, stops responding to your controls, saying, "You know what? Fuck this, I quit." And then the game credits just roll, and it's like, yeah, he got sick of.
Roll.
He's got like sick of working. But like, yeah, it's inherently gonna have to go on forever. That's how the game continues, and that's what the lives of the dwarfs are going to be. But I don't think... I think they should still play around with what happens if dwarves did just start revolting. They are kind of revolting.
They are revolting.
But
hey!
Yeah, if they... if maybe a rig, they take over a rig, basically. There's a revolt, they take over the rig, and they try and start up their own company or something like that. Because there's Smart Stout, isn't there? Where they're like, if we just left Deep Rock and then made our own mining company, we'd earn a lot more money.
Stout. That's not Smart Stout line.
Isn't it?
Well, I think it is, but there's also one that they ended recently, whereas... Once I'm done working for Galactic, I'm starting my own bloody mine. Show how it's done. That one, that's not Smart Stout. That's just something to stay in game.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
Which, I don't know. I think if they played with the, revolting thing, it could also be a pretty good time, narratively, to add the retirement option to the game. The resetting your dwarf and gaining an extra, fancy level up thing, because that's
Well,
like
the promotion is
that's their
definitely a thing.
their compromise.
Use.
Well, yeah, because it used to be
Promotion's kind
retirement.
of meaningless.
Yeah, promotions. I mean, I think it says like the only reason what you're paying for with the promotions is like the cost of all your armor and beers and all of that, right? Which you pay for, right? You've already paid
And
for
you
it.
pay for the promotion.
Yeah.
And they sort of like surround you with like statues of like dwarves. It's like just a memorial hall where you like honor the fallen. It's like they promote. It's make it all seem like sacred and like it's actually meaningful, but
like,
it's not.
Yeah, and then they have like the heartfelt speech of
It's just a way of
management.
It's like putting more money back into the company. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, what a love bunch.
And it's also because it also bears note that really, when you're promoted, you could quit, right? You've just paid off everything you owe the company, but at that point in time, you've never had more incentive to get back in the mine. So I don't know. It's just it's really funky because this is just some things that like no one would ever really think of, and I don't blame them. Because I don't until just now, like how everything you do in the game is, if it was done to someone in real life, would violate so many human rights or like so many.
Oh
like,
yeah, but it's
it'd
fine.
be so
They're
cruel.
dwarves.
Yeah, they're dwarves, and it's a fun space game. And
No. I'm saying I think that those things actually exist, but part of the reason why they hire dwarves is to avoid legal issues.
probably, yeah,
They seem like the kind of company.
They don't have human rights because they ain't human. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's horrifying.
I don't know. I think it's interesting how there's so many dark, heavy themes, and yet none of it is beyond jokes. Like the only references the game has towards these things affecting the dwarves or doing anything is just smart, stout laugh. Haha. It would be funny if the dwarf realized he was being manipulated, and it's gone. He wants more drinks. That kind of stuff.
There's also I don't really want to get into environmentalism per se, but there's this very obvious sense of we probably shouldn't be here. I think sometimes the dwarves get it, but they also kind of don't because they like killing things so much. But it's things like when it comes to the passive creatures and stuff. It's like the loot bugs. The dwarves kind of like loot bugs, and they actually the dwarves do feel bad for killing
Actively
them.
feel bad, yeah.
Players shouldn't. If you feel bad for killing loot bugs, you're a pussy. But the dwarves don't really like doing it, and there's other things like that. And like for example, the festive fleas, which are peaceful creatures, you're tasked to kill them because they just feed on electrical discharge, and it's been like, disrupting equipment. But they're still innocent creatures. It's just like, no, just kill them.
Yeah, but then again, the dwarves actually, they actively like killing the fleas, which I'm not surprised because those are kind of creatures like the loot bugs are like slow, cute little creatures where you're really just like stepping on a kitten at that point if you kill them, which we do often, and I don't care. But festive fleas are like a mosquito. You want to swat them and kill them. They need to be getting rid of now, and they also, it helps DRG, but I'd kill them anyway. You know what I mean? Although hexawing niffers are a bit similar. Like, they're like festive fleas, but you're not incentivized to kill them, and I really don't.
Dwarves seem to like them for some reason.
I think you can pet them, right?
Nobody niffs a niffer.
Yeah.
So what? Huh? Sure. And then the cave ranger's pretty cool. But what I'm getting at is sort of Hoxies would be quite peaceful without the dwarves. Like the different species of bugs don't attack each other.
Yeah.
They don't attack the passive creatures aren't prey either to other creatures.
Yeah.
I think everything just feeds on vegetation.
Which I think it is weird because, like, obviously this is because it's a game. They're not supposed to attack each other. They're supposed to attack you. But it has a weird implication that, like, these things that are so geared for war, like everything they do, everything they have is made to hurt you. They wouldn't. naturally they just wouldn't need any of the stuff. Like an
Because
oppressor.
sometimes we even make them kill each other.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's like an oppressor is so like geared for war. You know what I mean? Like he is.
But it's also just a mutation. It's also, well, no, the oppressors are weird. So, obviously, this is relating to like the development cycle. Oppressors weren't there from the beginning; they were added in an update. But
Yeah.
it is like they are described as a recent mutation. I think the oppressors are a specific mutation that came out of like
Okay, there you go.
DRG appearing. Yeah. So the oppressors were literally they came into existence for battle.
Which is that like how they've added like all enemies since?
No,
beginning?
I don't think so. Like the new dreadnoughts, like definitely not. And like the Macterias, I think those Macterias were always meant to be there, kind of really.
Yeah. What about like the Sasha Grunt, like or like guard?
Well, they've always been around though, pretty much.
Yeah, I suppose.
So it's fine.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting that the things that are designed to just absolutely destroy you don't. Like
Yeah.
in their natural habitat, they're just like ants going along their day, not even eating other creatures.
Yeah, and
All
we're
of them must be
invading their
like.
home.
The thing is, though, it's like if you think about it, it also doesn't make much sense because they can't all just be herbivores because there's only like 3 biomes with herbs, right? Like some things live in a radioactive exclusion zone. What the hell do they eat there? Like
Radiation.
like I think it might come down to they just die. Like they breed and die, they breed and die, they breed and die.
You actually don't think they eat at all?
I don't think they
Because
probably don't live
litbugs
long
eat-
enough.
We know litbugs eat. They eat minerals. Same with hoarders.
Yeah, but they're like the only ones to confirm do
Silicate
that.
harvesters. That's what they do. They harvest silicate from the minerals they sort of
Yeah,
dig
sure.
to find
But
their
like
food.
these are like the only means of anything being able to eat anything in some biomes, and these are the only things that we know do that. Right? These are specifically designed to be able to survive off of these things. Meanwhile, everything else, we have no idea what they eat. And plus, considering you could assume that they attack you because you're a threat, but they eat you while you're dead, right?
I think they are trying to eat us.
Yeah, they're clearly,
Specific-
and their
specifically.
their faces are just mouths. They're just entirely mouths.
That's all they have. That's the only orifice they have.
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't think too hard about it, but the glyphids make no sense anatomically. They
Yeah.
don't have. Well, I suppose you could say they don't have like a waste disposal, like an orifice for that, but maybe it's their mouths. They don't have eyes. They don't have a nose. What's going on there?
They're like
Sniff
wild
with their
mutt, but
mouths. They
without the
sniff with their
gills.
tongues. Yeah, they're like wild mutt.
From Ben 10, by
Sure.
the way. If
From 10 Ben.
from Benetton.
I was gonna
Benetton.
I was gonna say something, and you made me forget what I was going to say.
Glyphids are dumb.
Oh, dumb as hell
Yeah.
because they can't see.
But also, pretty cool design. Like,
Absolutely, like the yeah. Glyphids are pretty cool guys. I was going to say something about the queens because we literally. That's the whole point of elimination is to prevent the glyphid life cycle from completing.
yeah. Like,
We're just stopping them
don't
from.
want to reiterate this point enough. The dreadnoughts you fight are like embryos. they are halfway formed. It's like breaking a cocoon halfway, and he's like got half butterfly wings on a caterpillar.
Well, I think the hive god is actually meant to be quite far along, but that doesn't mean that the queen isn't still drastically different. Just because the hive guard is quite close in terms of time.
yeah, because the hive guard isn't actually because like the twins are just there was 2 like eggs right in the egg, so they're twins. That's how twins work. The normal dreadnought seems to just be the normal thing, but I think hive guards aren't they just a variant or something like that?
No, the hive guard is meant to be further along. I think the twins are in mutation.
Right.
Which is kind of weird. The twins are like pressers, basically. They're an offshoot.
Well, twins are
it's
twins.
not-
They're just a
Well,
result
no, I
of
think-
if two.
No, I think the
if-
twins is literally just a dreadnought splitting in half.
well, yeah, it's a result of twins.
Yeah,
The
it says a
natural-
dreadnought will split into 2.
Yeah,
which is
it is a
really
natural
weird.
yeah, which I think I don't know because because that means that the default dreadnought turns into a hive guard, and then a hive guard will turn into a ungodly abomination of nature, which I really want to fight at some point. But then it would also imply that the twins would evolve into some form of twin abominations.
Well, we should really talk about the Queen specifically, because it's implied, I would say, it's not outright said, but it's pretty obvious they've already killed one. And
that's how Carl went down. He 1v1'd the Queen and died in battle.
You'd think there'd be some line that connects the two directly, but obviously it's another one of the legends, I guess. It's not something that drives the dwarves necessarily, but it's something that they reference a lot, is when a queen was killed. Well, it's really just like your mother did. I can't remember if there's any other lines. I think there are. I can't remember them though.
Well, I think the Deep Rock. I mean, obviously they have that voice line, but DRG has never pushed. They are actively. We cannot allow them to get to that final stage. You know, like...
I think it either takes a very long time, or there can only be one at a time.
I think. I don't know if that makes sense or doesn't make sense.
No, I think
because
it
there's
doesn't make sense, but they could make it make sense.
Yeah, there's 3 cocoons in an area, which means clearly there's at least going to be 3, or they add 3, so if 2 of them die, there's still going to be 1.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I think it's excess.
Which is normally
only
like
one
multiple
thing,
eggs
because the Queen controls them all, so they can only have one. God, the Hive Guard's mouth is fucking horrifying, by the way. I don't know if you've looked at this thing.
Well, yeah, I had to do it for the build battle. It's pretty fun guy. Which, I don't know. Which makes me think, because if it's going to be like a Hive Guard, but bigger, right? Like, that's kind of going to be... Which, I don't know if... I mean, I like the Hive Guard's design, but I don't want it to be just a bigger, better Hive Guard. I want it to be interesting in design. But I think we're getting a bit off track. But the point is that, I mean, even though the dwarves are being manipulated, they're still not that good people either, right?
I don't think that's necessarily true. There's no showing of them necessarily being generous, but how would you show that? They don't interact with anyone else,
well, not like
and they
generous,
clearly care about each other.
They do very much enjoy genocide, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, when you kill a flea, they go like, isn't it when you kill, the voice line when you kill a dreadnought, or no, the arbalist.
The arbalist is up again. Sorry.
Yeah, like he literally erupts into laughter after murdering a embryo of a queen. You know, they're not good people, in that they thrive off of murder and harvesting of things, but there is a level of them being manipulated.
Realistically, I was about to say no worse than us, but that doesn't make much sense. It's just because I think they don't think about what they're doing to the bugs just for the same reason that we don't, because they're they're just so inhuman.
Desensitized.
Well, no, it's just because no one has an issue killing bugs. I don't think anyone's ever started playing Deep Rock. They come across a Glyphid Grunt and they want to do anything other than just shoot it. You want to kill those things. There's a different story for some passive creatures, but all of the enemy creatures, there's never any question as to why you would not kill them.
The thing is, there is the argument.
To them.
There is the argument of kill or be killed, right? Like, they kill the Glyphids so they don't die, but it then comes like them being there in the first place, right?
Well, the thing is, weirdly enough, that doesn't really apply to elimination, does it? Because they're going there to kill. The other ones, they're going to collect other things. But then the eggs, the Glyphid eggs, that's quite offensive, because there are ambushes, but you only get swarms from collecting eggs. Because the Glyphids are trying to get them back. God, stealing their children.
I don't get that, right? Because there are swarmer nests, right? Which I would imagine that is where they're born, right? Like, that is swarmers. They grow like in hordes in there, and then they grow up into the hordes of grunt. But I swear, a singular egg isn't gonna make a singular grunt, because the numbers don't add up. there's not enough eggs for the amount of grunts that there are.
Whoa! Sorry, I was just because the glyphid brood is a horrible weird thing because it's not a glyphid, is it? And it does actually talk a little bit about the actual biology of glyphids, because they call it one of the great mysteries of epoxies, because they know for a fact that glyphids hatch from eggs, but the brood nexuses exist nonetheless. And it's theorized that they are completely separate and somehow able to replicate DNA of other species, which sort of makes me question why haven't we seen
See,
others?
Harry, there you are. Oh
Like a
god,
Mateo
there we are,
brood
part 2.
nexus.
You know how we, like, a while ago now, we theorized, like, there's, like, a parasitic growth attaches itself to, like, a ship, and then it recreates, and you, like, really like a mimic kind of thing. That is the brood nexus, because the brood nexus is really just amalgamation of flesh that creates, apparently, clones of life. It's basically the thing. The brood nexus is the thing. But instead of turning itself into stuff,
I don't
can
like
create
looking
stuff.
at the brood nexus.
Yeah, and if you think the brood nexus looks fine in game, I'm pretty sure look at it in the board game, because that is actually kind of, and the same with the Spitballer. That is a design that they want more than its current one. I think you did say that they want to kind of update their designs in the game, right? To what the board game is. Harry. Oh, apparently he's dead. Sorry for this. Can't seem to join him either. Can't even invite him. Alright, well, sorry for the abrupt ending again. PC's actually somehow getting worse, just all the hot weather. I mean, this might not be the end, but I'm going to pause it, and if it never gets back, then thank you all for watching. This was the Barrel Vision podcast, and thank you. Okay, well, it'd be weird for us, but yeah, we're back. Not that it'd probably go on much longer, but yeah.
Well,
I think we did talk about more than what we wanted to say. I think we covered.
well, we didn't discuss genre at all.
Which, well, lightly.
Well, it could be its own thing.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
Because clearly, well, the reason whatever's going on is because Tyler's PC is melting. Or his Wi-Fi is. Both of them are. The router is melting. Which means we probably don't have much time.
Yeah.
How long is it?
1 minute 22.
Oh, that's fine. That's actually decent. That's not too short, certainly. Which means we could potentially wrap up. We're going to talk about sandwich time, though.
Yeah. What do they mean by sandwich time? What's the implications?
Do the dwarf eat? Probably.
Well, yeah.
Well, there's a fridge.
You're
There's
right.
a fridge on the
Fridges, mess halls, sandwich time.
Where's the mess hall? We're going to get the mess hall.
I think there is a lot of potential in the hub for like actual stuff, and they're just not bothering, which I don't blame them for.
I think it might be because adding much more might actually create annoying load times for the Space Rig, even. Because it's quite a lot. It's very asset heavy for a hub.
I can't imagine the hub is ever going to take longer to load than missions, and our missions are instantaneous, right? Like,
It's not even that though. It's just maybe they don't want too much. it could become taxing
Yeah, but the thing is that
for the
they
game,
already,
not even necessarily for the hardware.
yeah, they already kind of are, that have the areas. They like it's unnecessarily big, the rig, and it
Yeah,
gets
they
to a
definitely did
point.
that, but it doesn't. Yeah, but I think they can just like load. You can just load into different areas potentially. But it would need to be it would need to be good enough because that's why they haven't done the shooting range, is because you
Well,
would have
yeah,
to
no,
load
no,
into it. They need
they
to create something that's like that. I think it might just be worth doing if it can encompass a few different things. You sort of load into different space, but it encompasses more than just a shooting range. But you can, it's still like a different space because that's why they have to. That's why they said they would have to create a new. It would have to be like a game mode, a shooting range.
or maybe
But they could still do that, and you could have your weapons out, but it could still also include the mess hall and things
now
like
this
that.
is off fucking rockers, but at this point we're in overtime. But maybe the mess hall, it has guns enabled, right? Because that's
That's what
what
I
you
said.
need. Guns enabled, and there are other players, like not just the four in your game. There it could be like up to like 20 people in the mess hall, and you can kind of dick around with other players, do a bit of PvP stuff like that. Like it's like a, I don't know. It could be something like that. It could be like a custom games area basically. Um,
And I assume it may, yeah.
you would need something that big to warrant that, kind of. You know what I mean? Like I was just thinking, I don't know. They added a little like canteen in like a floor upstairs where sandwich time is, and you make the sandwiches.
Oh, do you know what we should do? Is check the stream while we're here.
Oh, what are they streaming now?
They've been streaming for the past 2 hours.
Right.
I assume that they're probably quite close to finishing or done. So just keep us afloat. It shouldn't take long.
Yeah, but the point is there's a lot of light lore throughout the game, which they can, but probably won't implement. And Sandwich Time is a joking one that we think has potential to be something in the game. You know, you have a drink of beer,
lore of the
and then
sandwiches.
you have a sandwich that can like change around the game stats, stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. The thing is I feel I I still see the game like it's being in the works still. Like the game can still change radically when it probably won't from now on. It's gonna be a very consistent, light, thinly layered lore with seasonal based like events and a couple bits of like miscellaneous like immersion fun stuff in the hub, like the dressing gowns, not dressing gowns, medical gowns. Like
Medical gowns. What about
they
them?
were what I was saying, but you weren't listening, which is fair. I'm talking to the viewers, Harry. But yeah, I just think I'd like them to do something just out of the blue. Like this next season, they add a retirement so that the people that are stuck at Legendary 3 can finally have some progress. Stuff
We've
like
been
that.
through this before.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's something
Many
like that.
times.
Stuff that would radically change the game, which I don't think they're interested in doing anymore. Once they've added these seasons, I think they're going to enter a comfortable retirement state where they are just going to
Well,
do the same vague things over and over and over again. They're going to add a new weapon or a new tool. They're going to add some more overclocks. They're going to add a new game mode or new map or new place in the a new feature to the game. They're going to add a couple more events, some light lore in the season pass, and then maybe something else if they feel like adding a bit of fun and spice to the hub. I don't think they're going to do much more than that anymore. Unless they surprise me, which is why I'm looking forward to Season 3, because I think they could probably do with it at this point. Because I think Season 2 was better than Season 1. Oh, he's gone again. But generally, like, a bit more disappointing. in like it was literally season 1 part 2, although it did what season 1 did better, but at least they got better at it. All right. With another disconnect, we've just wasting our time at this point. See you all. Not next week, actually. Well, we see, but
You'll see us next week.
there'll be no podcast next week because Harry's on holiday, and we like to do these the week. So, yeah. And also, if there's news next week, I'm not sure what you should expect because Harry won't be here.
Tyler will do it.
Will I?
I'll be on it. I'll make sure you know.
All right.
But if anything big happens, you're gonna have to do something.
All right. So yeah, I guess I'll do that then. But thank you for
Honestly, I thought
watching.
you disconnected again there. You sort of cut out for a second. At least
I
for me, you did.
probably don't have long because I realised you didn't
No, you
actually
don't.
my
Right.
internet.
Okay. We're gonna go before we go.
Yeah. Have a
See you
fun one.
tomorrow.
Yeah. We are actually streaming tomorrow, so yeah. See ya.
Mystery box.